Hello?
Hi, is this Dr. Tracy Scott?
It is. Is this Heather?
Yes. Hey, great. Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm awesome. Thank you so much
Uh,
for your patience and all the back and forth. But
no problem. Thank you for your interest in the topic. Yeah, yeah.
absolutely, yeah. So basically this will probably be more like a profile that we'll do. So I have some pictures of you, which is great. And first I just want to start out getting your first and last name as your title as you want it to be in the story.
Um, well, it would just be Dr. Tracy Scott.
Okay, great. All right. And then if you could first start by just talking a little bit about, your background before we get to, the main topic.
Yeah, so my background in terms of professionally.
Yeah, your professional
Yeah, yeah,
background would be great
yeah,
because I think that's kind of one of the compelling parts of the story. Yeah.
yeah. So I have an earned doctorate degree
Mhm.
in clinical psychology,
Okay.
and I specialized in a field called neuropsychology, actually clinical neuropsychology, and
Right.
a 2 year postdoc fellowship in that area at a time in which the that particular aspect of the field of psychology was relatively new.
Mhm.
And and from there, I went through, completed my training, but found my um, probably my foot in the area of teaching in seminars, because one of the things that I realized as I was going through my training and and time set, it was of more significant value for me to um, help people before they entered treacherous waters. And oftentimes I found myself at the point of my training that I was helping people after they had fallen into a crisis situation.
Mm.
And I wanted to go up river and help them before they fell in.
Mm.
And I found that to be a more significant space for me. Also, I had an opportunity to have kind of a mass impact with my time on the radio, seminars, and that sort of things, as opposed to having kind of just a one-on-one counseling session.
Right.
So that really became my cup of tea, and I found my foot in that space.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so, that's kind of it. And then, certainly in terms of teaching, my time spent at Loyola University in Chicago um, was a great experience. I had taught at several universities prior to that, but Loyola was a good fit for me.
Okay. All right. Great. All right. So then maybe you could talk a little bit about the early part of your journey and sort of the diagnosis and all that sort of earlier part.
Yeah, so around 2002, somewhere around in that time frame, I started experiencing um, kind of mini spasms.
Mm.
They would come on, um, and then they would abate. They would leave.
Mm-hmm.
And, it kind of caught my attention, but, being a former athlete, I kind of said, well, maybe I'm doing too much. Maybe I'm exhausted or I'm overworking myself and I need to just kind of take it easy and just kind of pay attention to this. However, um, over time, they continue to escalate, not only in terms of frequency, but also in terms of intensity.
Mm.
And at that point in time, I went to my doctor and went through the process of blood work, and my blood work came back. Everything was pristine. It was really good. And so I said, well, okay, but still, let me try to adjust some things in terms of my diet. Um, so I started making changes in my diet, but yet the spasms persisted.
Mm.
And so at one point, I started kind of like a home remedy type of process in which that when I felt the spasms, I would um, either get in a sauna or take a hot bath,
Mm-hmm.
hoping that the spasms would dissipate.
And at this point,
And
you're not seeking any medical care. You're just still thinking it's kind of something treatable.
well, I sought medical care, but
Oh,
everything
right.
was fine in terms of my blood work.
Right. Okay, right. So you'd gone to get the blood work, like you mentioned, and everything came
Yeah,
back normal. So you're thinking, yeah.
thinking, okay, maybe it's lifestyle,
Right. Okay.
and so let me start addressing it that way. And so I started, taking the showers and it kind of, the saunas and stuff, and it kind of helped. But one day, while in the shower or in the spasms came on,
Okay.
and that's when I really got concerned
Wow.
because now not only was my blood work good, the methods that I had used to help alleviate the spasms were not working, but they were actually happening in the midst of being in a sauna
Right.
or
Right.
taking a hot bath.
Right.
And that was extremely alarming.
Mm.
So I went to back to my primary care doctor.
Mm-hmm.
He recommended at that point in time that I see a neurologist and a pain specialist.
Mm.
And I went to a major um, healthcare facility. I won't mention the name, but
Okay.
it's known as it's a major place. And I was I met with the doctor, and in the midst of telling him the story in terms of what was happening in my symptoms, and that my body started erupting in spasms.
Wow.
And it was so alarming to the doctors because they had never seen anything like this.
Okay.
To that they started injecting me with trigger point type of injections to calm down that inflammation and the spasms.
Right.
And it did settle things down. But by the time I left the clinic and drove home,
Mm-hmm.
the spasms were starting again.
Wow.
At that point in time, I went on baclofen, which is a anti-spasmodic medication,
Mm-hmm.
and that did help for about a year or two.
Mm-hmm.
But then the spasm started to break through the baclofen,
Wow.
and at that point in time, I changed. I changed primary care doctors because of my insurance,
Mm-hmm.
and I was sent to a different neurologist, a new neurologist, and they started a series of treatments trying to intervene, trying to help. But it seems as though that we're now looking at somewhere around 2015.
Right.
That it seems as though that each time that they were intervening, that not only did it not work, but that the spasms would intensify.
Mm.
And so one day, um, I went in for my appointment, and the neurologist said to me, said, Dr. Scott, said, um, I need to talk with you. Have you ever heard of a disease called stiff person syndrome? And I said, no, I haven't. He said, listen, I want you to go home. I want you to look it up, and then you and I need to talk.
Wow.
I left his office and went straight down to my car and looked that up.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell you, when I saw the presentation and the onset, I was looking at myself.
Wow.
And
Like you
I
just
said,
saw all
oh
the
my God,
symptoms. You saw everything.
oh my God, oh my goodness. So after over a decade and a half of searching, trying to figure out what was going on, I had my answer. But now
Wow.
the question was what to do about it.
And what year is it at this point?
So now we're at 2017.
Okay.
So from about 2002 until I was diagnosed in 2017.
Wow. That's horrifying.
And the tough thing about it is that the um, not only did he tell me that he suspected that this was my diagnosis,
Mm-hmm.
but that there was no cure for it,
Mm.
and that there were little known treatments. Matter of fact, I had failed every treatment at that point in time, up until that point.
Wow. But they had been treating you not for that. So was his point that the things that other physicians had been doing, you had failed even though they didn't know what your diagnosis was?
Yeah, because they were treating the symptoms,
Oh, gotcha.
and and so there were a number of possibilities in terms of diagnoses that were suggested in terms of fibromyalgia,
Yeah,
lupus,
yeah,
multiple sclerosis. They
yeah.
looked at all of those, but I didn't really fit the criteria for that.
Right.
And my blood work was constantly coming back good.
Mm.
And so once I received that diagnosis, that now was really trying to figure out, okay, where do we go from here? What do we do?
Right. Wow. Okay. So, the journey as, we got it here was like a very sort of triumph over adversity story, which what you're describing sounds just like that. So, and obviously I think myself and probably a lot of other people, when I've heard about the story, the first person I thought of was Celine Dion, right? Because
Yeah.
now her case is like very well known, and so maybe that's getting some more focus of it out. But maybe you could talk about just a little bit about once the diagnosis happened, um, where you went from there, sort of emotionally, and where where you are in terms of your journey now.
Yeah, so really it was being a clinician and having that education and training and background and especially being a professor. I was I was used to kind of being in control of
Right.
my environment and of the situation. If I didn't have the answers, I kind of knew how to steer people into a direction to find answers
Mm-hmm.
or to get help or resources.
Right.
However, in this situation here, um, making that transition from being a professor and healthcare professional to actually being the patient, in which that the people that I've sought for answers had no answers. And
Right.
I ultimately had no answers. That was very, very difficult for me to accept. It was heart wrenching because now I was in a situation in which that I felt like I had no control.
Right. 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 Right.
And I had to learn how to gain some sense of control and some sense of dignity and to realize that my life still had meaning, despite the fact that I was now faced with um, being a forever patient.
Right. Right. Exactly. Okay, so what does your picture look like these days in terms of the frequency that you go to see a physician and so forth? Like what is your journey like now?
So my life now, it requires extensive preparation. Before leaving my home, I make sure that I have my medications with me. I have a rescue bag that I keep with me. I'm always cognizant of the emergency rooms where they're located in the area there, just in case that spasms, the onset of spasms happen and they don't dissipate. That I need to get to an emergency room. The routine that I have it really demands a significant effort in adaptation. I've had to adapt my lifestyle. And I also had to be aware of it's not only the fact that the patient, are living with stiff person syndrome, but how my life with this syndrome affects all of those around me.
Right, right.
All of my social relationships and that because there are events and things that I can't do. And sometimes people may say, well, listen, you seem to have had a good time last week and that, so we're going to invite you to this week. And the day of the event, I can't attend. And sometimes that could be very difficult for people to accept because the unique thing about stiff person syndrome is that it is an invisible disease.
Right.
That unless you see the spasms or the stiffness, you would never know that I have it.
Right.
And that brings in a unique challenge of encouraging people to understand just in terms of how it has affected my lifestyle and all of those around me.
Right. Right. What would you like people who read the Amsterdam News to know about stiff person syndrome and sort of some of the challenges that you faced?
I'm not sure that I'm understanding that question.
Oh, so usually at the end of the profile, we leave something with the Amsterdam News readers in terms of either, so for example, like we
Some
did.
takeaways?
Yeah, not only takeaways, but also, if they think that they might be suffering from this or somebody else that they know, what can they do about that? So we did a series around like COVID Mythbusters, and we always love people with, the myth has been busted. Now, what do I do to make sure that other people in my life don't believe that COVID is caused by 5G aliens on the back of the neck? So yeah.
I understand. Yeah, I mean, so the important thing is the relationship that you have with your medical healthcare professional to solidify that relationship, to make sure that you stay in constant contact with them, and that you follow their recommended, their advice. I'm in constant contact with my primary care doctor.
Mm.
I do nothing in terms of from a healthcare perspective without checking in
Mm.
with him. And I'm very fortunate that I have what's called a good doctor because not only is he compatible, but he's very sensitive um, to my um, uh, to having a chronic illness, and also he's culturally sensitive as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so he realizes that the stress that I'm under and um, um, the possibility of developing depression and anxiety, all these things which can exacerbate the illness,
Right.
that he takes all that into consideration. So the first thing would be is that you need to make sure that you stay in constant contact with your doctor.
Right.
Second of all, I think it's important to realize that despite the fact of what you may be going through, that your life still has meaning
Mm-hmm.
because you need hope.
Mm-hmm.
That still person syndrome is so painful when the spasms um, um, when they take hold. I mean, they really are. It's not like a cramp. It's as if someone is taking my body and put it in a vice grip and just started turning and ratcheting the grip and won't let go. So you do need perseverance.
Mm.
Um, it's an attitude thing, you know, that starts with your mind. It starts with your purpose, and that despite what you're facing, that you don't give up. If in fact you don't have a physician that you have that relationship with, seek that out.
Mm-hmm.
And because that's important. It's very difficult to address a lifestyle of living with stiff person syndrome without that relationship with your doctor.
Right. Right.
The other thing that I think is really important is in terms of for me is nutrition, a diet. That I make sure that I do everything that I can. So yes, there's a reliance upon my healthcare professional, but ultimately I'm responsible for my healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
And so doing everything that I can in terms of my diet, making sure that I get some exercise each day. I may not be able to exercise every day to the same degree, but I can always do something.
Mm-hmm.
And I listen to my body. If I need to relax, I need to not attend an event, meeting, I don't do it. And I don't apologize for that.
Mm-hmm.
That ultimately I'm responsible for my health care.
Right.
And I would say the last thing that's really important is um, hopefully you have relationships with people who are empathetic and compassionate. Because again, one of the biggest challenges that you have with the chronic illness is that it is lifelong, it's enduring, and you need support. People tend to do better when they have support, a supportive environment.
Right. Okay, this was fabulous. So I definitely have what I need for the profile. If I need another picture, I'll let you know, but I know we have at least two, so that's
Oh, you
perfect.
can go on the website, and there are pictures on the website
Oh,
that
perfect.
are for media.
Okay, great. Oh, amazing. Okay, great. All right, good. So I'll get those, and then I'm hoping this will be out. We publish on Thursdays, so might not be this Thursday, but hopefully the next Thursday. But I'll definitely keep you updated as to when it's gonna drop.
Oh, super! Can you just send me your address? I'll send you a signed copy of the book.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Oh, that's great. Okay, yeah, I'll email it to you. Wait, do I have you?
Fantastic.
Yeah, I think I do. Okay, great. Yeah, I definitely will. That's so exciting. All right, good.
Thank you for the love. I appreciate it. I hope it helps
Absolutely.
someone.
Yes, we'll definitely be in touch, okay? All right. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.